Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Outcome Studio podcast, where we are talking about trends and best practices in sales, marketing, and technology with people who are out there getting it done. And guys, this is a really special episode for me because I'm 33 years of age now, but when I started my career way back when, so I was a teller at a credit union for like 9 months and realized, I need to get into an industry that is going to be resilient. I was always excited about information technology and IT because my uncle was a project manager for like telecom for enterprise sized businesses. And so little company called GoDaddy, the founder actually is from and ran offices in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, even though the company's based in Arizona. So I got a job at GoDaddy in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. And Casey O'Connor, who I have today, was one of my first bosses. Casey has been a role model of mine and a mentor. So Casey, welcome to the show.
Humbly, thank you.
Yes.
Every time it's funny when you talk like that, it's just like, what do you mean, man? You're my mentor. It's become reciprocal. But go ahead. Sorry.
Well, I appreciate it, man.
Thank you.
And guys, there's a reason I have Casey on. He has started a company recently called Can Do, Can Teach. Well, he's had it for a bit, but he's going all in on it. But the story I want to tell about Casey real quick to set the tone for what we're talking about is at GoDaddy, 24/7 support, global. And we would take these phone calls. And so as you imagine, you got to work times a day that may not be exciting for you, really early shifts, 6 a.m. you got to start, or holidays in particular. And I remember this one Thanksgiving, I had to go in and work. And Casey gave, every morning before we start a shift, there's probably 30 reps ready to, handle support calls for the day. And Casey stood up and he talked about something special to me, which was like, you guys are working today. It's Thanksgiving. And you're taking time away from your family. And I just want you to remember, every time you come into work, make sure you check your self-talk cycle. Every day when I'm driving into work, I talk myself through positive thoughts and what impact do I want to make on my customers today, and use that drive time on the way into work to make sure you're coming in with the right mindset. Because I get it, you guys might be frustrated you're working today, but this is so important for our customers and it's important for you. You're appreciated. Thank you for doing this. And I just get chills thinking about how Casey handled that. I'd never seen a business leader like that talk to a whole team, and just everybody was captivated. And Casey, you guys, he's a volunteer firefighter. He runs ultramarathons, and just an inspirational guy. On the side, he volunteers to help small business owners with their business, just entirely volunteer. So Casey, I'll pass it to you. Why do you make such an impact on people with the way you speak? And you've certainly mastered that craft. How did you come to be this way?
Wow, man. First of all, thanks for having me on, dude. It's like I said, it's an honor to maintain and have an opportunity to still have a relationship and a friendship with you, and but also professional stuff as well. But the heart is strong, man. I think that it came from, it starts at home. It starts at home. I got 3 kids now, and I speak to and articulate being in and creating the world that I want to be a part of, and that has something that I didn't know I was being taught that along the way. That's how I was raised, though. And the funny thing is, my mom never said something like, CIA, control, influence, accept, right? Control your controllables. My mom never used those words, but she had such a dire optimism. It was fierce. And when she passed away, I took care of her for the last 6 months of her life in my home with my family. And we had conversations in that time that I've never had in my life. I learned about my mom more in the last 6 months of her life than I learned about in all the years before that, leading up to it. But I think that when for her, it was kind of a defense mechanism. She grew up in Brooklyn in a time when, that's the kind of people, like, they kind of close off the rest of the world and protect themselves, like live in their own little bubble, just out of survivability, you know. And she took that, and so her gift for all the stuff that she grew up with that was traumatic, and there was a lot, and I'm not going to get into it, but obviously, there was a lot, this abuse and substance things like that around her. As a child, that wasn't her, but that was going on around her, and the gift that she was given to survive that was the gift of forgetting, and then forgetting the pain, forgetting that stuff, and then moving forward, just moving forward. And eventually, when I got the company GoDaddy was a place where I was introduced to a set of professionals and adults that they gave me for the first time that vocabulary. So my leaders and my
Yeah.
mentors were the ones that gave me the words and the vocabulary and the structure that spoke to that visceral upbringing through which I came. Make sense? I don't know.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yeah. It's
so
like
when
they
people talk,
they took what your mom had taught you, maybe using different words because of her background and just the way she's wired. It maybe wasn't right size for the business context. And these leaders and professionals you met at GoDaddy
right?
used business work, like, how do we apply this to our jobs and our careers and the people we're serving as leaders at this company, or our customers, whatever that might be. And they used that vocabulary, and it was the first time you got exposure to that.
Correct.
Yeah.
And when I was starting there, before that, I had help desk experience. I had technical experience. I had that spirits, but that was the platform. That was the knowledge, the subject matter, right? But she was kind of what you're alluding to. It's like it was kind of irrelevant because that's not why I stayed there for 14 years. I didn't stay at GoDaddy for 14 years because I care about websites. I mean, they're important.
And it's
I
cool.
have
It's
it,
interesting,
it's a
but
cool thing to know
yeah.
about, and yeah, I mean that's great. But that's not what got up in here, right? What got up in here was this this enablement of and this framework for how to be something that you never were before, and probably didn't even know or believe that you could become. It was through the process and the leaders and the opportunities that were given to me where I discovered. Um, I, man, it's imagine the mindset of someone who just thinks they never even see themselves doing something that is that that means a shit. It's like, I'm going to get this job and I'm going to do this or whatever. And I just did. That was my experience. My experience was I got a job while I was going to school for something completely unrelated. Um, Music therapy, as a matter of fact, and
Yeah.
physical exercise science. And I was not and nursing, like that was the path I was going. So I wanted some meeting, and my mom was a nurse, so she had an influence on me there. But then I got over into this space, and I was able to make, and it was the kind of money for the first time I was going to be able to make a living that I never foreseen, because before that, like, I had knucklehead jobs where they didn't pay a lot of money, and that was what I had, like, and all of a sudden here I was I think I was 31, 30 at the time. And for the first time, like, I was like, wow, I can make like adult money for and it was nice kind of growing up a little bit, but like, not just because, but it was, by acquiring and getting and learning these skills and then passing them on. And that's all I did, really. I took these things and I just passed them on. So how did I get there, man? That was it. Like, that was the big thing. And it was given to me. Is the answer to the question. That's my charmed life, is I've been given a lot of things, and the best things I've done or accomplished or have had is basically when I was wise enough or nudged enough to pay attention. Because it's like one of those solutions, when you turn your back on them, you just don't see what's all around you that can make you better, and ultimately make those around you better.
And then you took that, though, and just so you guys understand, Casey mentioned it. He, details aside, I mean, worked at GoDaddy for 14 years, I love the company personally. I think almost everybody who worked there feels this way about that company, because it is that culture. Like Casey had some leaders that helped him realize his worth.
Mm-hmm.
Casey then became one of those leaders and Casey, you probably helped literally thousands of people, reps coming through that company, see their worth. And that's not an exaggeration. If not thousands, like certainly upper hundreds, you impacted lives of just teams upon teams of these people. You said something interesting about worth. Like you are allowed to like have this type of job, or if you follow these set of behaviors and you have this mindset. Like I brought up the self-talk cycle. You brought
Mm-hmm.
up, you had all these little tidbits. I said, you taught me about self-talk cycle. I still use that to this day. Self-talk when I wake up. You talked about control your controllables, meaning there are things we have influence on in our lives, but we can only influence. We cannot control those. But what can you control? Yourself. And so
Actions and attitude. That's it. That's all we
actions.
get.
And so maybe this is a good question to kind of take it down. You do things like you're an ultramarathon runner. How does, whether it's business or in life, why is mindset for yourself to be able to wake up every day and do what you need to do? Why is mindset so important to you? Because I would argue you've spent a lot of time refining that.
Yeah.
Based on what I know about you.
I think from a story, and if I'm gonna, you want me, I can use the running analogy, right? When I got around I got into running, and basically because out of vanity, I went short story. I went to Hawaii and went like on a snorkeling trip, and they did like this underwater video thing, and I saw that, and I was like, who's that big blob of a guy floating around in the water? I wasn't in shape. I was, in my 20s, and I just, whatever. And I was like, I'm too young to be this out of shape, and just, I've just got too much going for me. Like, I got to do something. And so I started running, and I eventually at GoDaddy, a friend of mine, James, he actually was like, "Hey, you want to run this half marathon with us?" I think it was the Rock and Roll Marathon, the Rock and Roll half marathon in Phoenix. That's the franchise around the country. So that was the first half marathon I was going to go out and do it. I was like, man, I don't even know what this is about. This sounds like this is huge. It's insurmountable. But he said, dude, just trust me, you'll be fine. Just do this. Here's some things you want to go do. So I started researching it, and I found a training schedule on the internet, and got myself up to that speed, and I did it. And it was like, wow. Someone else told me, hey, dude, there's a finish line out there, and you can get to it. What's along the way? Don't worry about that. I just need you to understand that there's a finish line that you can get to, no matter what. You can do this. And maybe not with those words as strong as it was, but that was the message I was feeling. I can do something that I had never even conceived of being able to do. Fast forward past that, me exciting it, and I'm kind of an all-in kind of guy anyway. So it's like, yeah, I did this thing. So what am I doing? I'm on the internet, next thing you know, looking for other races to sign up for. In doing so, I haven't talked about this for a while. In doing so, I came across this race, and it's friends of mine are Revipi running. They're based out of Phoenix, mostly some Colorado stuff, but these guys were doing this. So this race was called the Javelina 100. It was spelled with the J's, JJ 100. So the Javelina 100, kind of a little play there. And I saw this website, and these people because it takes place at Halloween, so people were like running in like running Halloween costumes, and they were all smiling and happy. And then that's what you see. That's the visual. And then you read the words, and it's talking about this 100-mile race, and you're like, oh, how long? Like over a week? Like all the questions that I get today when I talk about, or people hear about ultras, and they ask me, and I'm, again, when it comes to ultras and those races, dude, I'm a back or middle of the pack at best kind of a runner. I'm no front runner guy, but
So
anyway.
somebody's got to bring up the rear, dude.
Yeah, dude, seriously, right? There in races, there's a there's DNS, did not start. There's DNF, did not finish, and there's DFL, dead fucking last. And I will run any ultra, and I will proudly take the DFL, because that means you got out
You
there and
finished. You showed
you
up and
got
you
that shit
finished.
done. You
Yeah.
got it done. You got it done, exactly. So that was like, I just happened to stumble across a website for this 100-mile race where people were smiling and happy looking, and I thought to myself, I want to do that. I didn't even know what it meant, but I wanted to do it. And then, so I started training for it, and I started looking at other events, and then I started realizing, like, these things are actually out there. Like, this is a thing. The answer to the question, was that a thing? Yes, it's a thing. And so I got my introduction, and when you get that community, I learned, when it comes to that type of mindset, dude, that community has probably taught me the most. And the people that showed me, like, you don't worry, there's things along the way you're going to have to do. There is a process, and you have to respect it. But at the end of ultimately, I hate the end, at the end of the day, ultimately, you gotta just see the finish line. So I kind of was taught that visualization, I think,
Yeah.
of endgame, that
Yeah.
and the process, like, nutrition and training and things like that. So then, and fast forward to speaking more to the mindset. So my most, when it comes to ultras, like, if I was to say hands, like, what's your hands down biggest accomplishment as a runner? For me, was definitely in 2016, when, for those that don't know, in Iowa, every year for the last 40 some odd years or whatever it's been, is RAGBRAI. And I always what it stands for, but basically it's a bicycle, not a race, but it's a
I think it
bicycle.
stands for, just for context, RAGBRAI stands for Ride Across the Great.
State of Iowa, or it's
Yeah, great. And then there's like a bicycle. It's a
yeah,
bike thing. The
it's a
B stands for
bicycle thing.
whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, B is for bicycle, right? B is for
Yeah.
Bob.
But
B is for bicycle.
it's a bike. It's a
And
bicycle. It's like a 5-day bicycle ride across Iowa.
yep,
Yeah.
7 day,
RAGBRAI.
dude. No,
Or
it's a
7.
7 day
Yeah.
bicycle ride, because it's not a race. It's an event. It's a thing that people come and be a part of, and literally that's what they do. They get in their bicycle and they ride from anywhere from 50 to 70 miles per day. In some cases, I think with the extra leg, they have a 100-mile day, and they fuel up along the way, and there's things in place for them to do that. So there's food trucks, and there's the pork chop guy before he passed away. But there was the big pink school bus converted into a portable barbecue shop, and there's beer and drinking and partying. It's this big giant moving bicycle party across the state of Iowa, from river to river. And as a joke or as a challenge, a coworker friend of mine, Johnny, she said, you should do that. She's like, well, you're probably going to run it. And I was like, yeah, I am. Like, just
I
as,
can run that.
just as, no, I didn't even negotiate that part. I just threw myself into, yeah, I can do that. Like, it, without even like conceiving, without even like taking out a measuring tape and like thinking, like, how big, what did you just throw yourself into saying that you can do? How big of a claim is that? You obnoxious, over the top dick.
Well,
I
it's
mean,
hilarious, guys, because Casey's like 6. How tall are you? 6'4"?
I'm 6'3", yeah. So I'm a big
Yeah.
lumbering, he's
Big
a big,
lumbering goon.
oh my
Lumbering
God.
across the state of Iowa for 7 days.
Frankenstein, yeah, seriously. Um, and it was a great experience, a beautiful experience. In preparation for that, how do you prepare for that? The answer is, I still don't know. But what I did know was that it wasn't going to be the steps that got me to the finish line or got me to dip my toes in the Mississippi River. I knew that it was going to be a, a grueling thing where I would have to get up 3, 4 o'clock in the morning by myself and run 10, 12 hours every day and come finish in the dark because I knew it was going to be a lot. I had to do the math and kind of figure it out. And I actually did a little research. Like there was two people that had done this before me, two amazing athletes. Now they did it aided, so they had help. Like people carried stuff for them basically. So they just had to run. But at the time, I thought it made sense to me just to do it as a self-aided thing. So I got my kid's jogging stroller and I filled it up with all my goodies and everything. And I would pretty much so because you can't run 50 miles a day or on average eating pork chops and beer. Like that ain't the right fuel.
No.
So what happened was I went out and I would run almost every morning, anywhere from 6 to 12 miles a day in the morning, and I would have to get up. And the training wasn't. It's time on feet, yes, and it's getting out there regularly, and training, running 10 miles a day. How does that equate to running 50 miles a day? Well, because it's about getting up and going. What I trained for and what I learned, the most important lesson that I learned, and as I came to the day it was going to actually begin and I was going to do the race, was, the thing that really had set into me was every day I wasn't training to be a better runner. I was training to get the hell up. I was training
The
to,
discipline.
when I
Yeah.
wake up in the morning, I don't negotiate with terrorists. Like I get up in the morning and I had put in place, my running shoes were there, my clothes were there, the things that I needed to get up and do so I didn't have to think about it. Were prepared, right? I had that stuff ready to go, so I would just get up and go. And that was the lesson, was how do you facilitate your own success so you can just go, you stay mindful of the why, you stay mindful of the what, but the work gets done in the how. And for me, that the lesson of that event was, for the 3 months beforehand, from the time I made the decision to do it to the time I took my first step on course, was because at first I started off running 2 or 3 days a week, 4 days a week, good miles, whatever. And I ran into a guy that was doing another event similar to this, not quite as far, but still. He's like, "Yeah, dude, you got to pick that pace up." He gave me some real talk.
Ah,
Yeah, you got to put these kind of miles in. So that was the advice I got. So the mechanics of things, of what to do, I got from other people doing what they did well too, right? So at GoDaddy or other fields, yeah, you want to be successful, talk to the people winning and ask them for advice.
hmm
um but
and be
the
coachable
but
and
the
take the
actions
feedback.
of, yeah, and that's the thing. He's like, guess what? The clock, basically, he said to me, the clock's ticking and you're doing this wrong. This is what you can do to do this right. And the next, that was at a 50-kilometer race. That was the Hawkeye 50, was that race. I ran into this dude and that's what he told me about. And so from that day forward, every day, it was about getting up, putting on them shoes that I had laying next to my bed in my running clothes, and getting out the door. And everything else would work itself out, because it's never, when it comes to going out for a run, I can say this: 100% of the runs I've went out and did, I felt better afterwards. Should I go to the gym? All those negotiations and conversations, basically a broken self-talk, right? Because there's positive self-talk and there's broken self-talk. When you remove the opportunity to fail and you go straight into the actions that or are fully confident will allow you to win, and you focus on those actionables, it's what I call, for me, the biggest term is called the predictable win. And that's the thing, that's kind of a subject that I've been thinking about a lot lately, is the predictable win. And it's just simple math, man. If you do this, this, and this is the outcome. Don't do this, and skip this and expect the outcome, or be disappointed when you don't have the outcome.
Yeah, like go
You
for the
have to
guarantee. Yeah.
stick to there's enough people out there that have done whatever it is you think you want to do. There's enough people out there that have done it before. You can ask them for help. And inherently, the good nature of people want to help. So when you put things in a position of, hey, can you help me? inherently, I think people are naturally drawn to that.
Yeah.
And that's where I've gotten that feedback, and that's the lesson was focus, just do the things that people winning do. And if you don't know what those are, ask. But that outlined formula is still, it's executable and it's repeatable, and it's consistent. Hence formula. Like
Well, you
formulas always yield that equals this, right? Predictable win.
well maybe we can use this to segue to can do, can teach, because
Hmm.
think about starting a business.
Yeah.
You in this capacity, you haven't done it before. I certainly had not done it before prior to when I
Yeah.
took a stab at it. And one thing that I think is hard to reconcile is the discipline and like how aggressive in the sense of urgency is you just described with a realistic timeline. You
Hmm.
look at what is it? Some astronomical number of businesses fail within the first 12 or 24 months, something like that. And
Yeah.
it's
Yeah. The
hard.
odds are
It's
all
hard.
against you. Yeah.
Or even think about running. Like
Yeah.
I did my first marathon, and it's like a lot of people don't do that. It was like because it's freaking hard.
Yeah.
And like, so how do you reconcile? And let's transition to can do, can teach. But like
Hmm.
the patience it requires to do something and understanding timelines. And let's use a real example. How do you think about it with can do, can teach?
So um, I think that it's funny how you can be so close and so far from what you want to become.
Yeah.
And what that means is I my career was based in a place, in this case GoDaddy, other companies too, but mostly GoDaddy, that was focused on serving the entrepreneur. So I was in that space and had that awareness every day with every customer I spoke to. We used to, when we went in training, we would talk about like, this website, is this for their small business, or is this is this a hobby site for the grandma who loves her kittens, and she's knitting sweaters for them, right? And she just wants to have a personal website.
All of which are
Um,
important, by the way.
all of which, yeah, yeah, all of which are important. Um, but being around these people and being around that energy, that's the spirit of that entrepreneur, like when they call and they had a sense of urgency, you kind of mentioned there, about their website being down, because that was their business, that's their baby. Their phone call to us and their website being online is the most important website on the internet, right? um, and learning that over time, and kind of that when that eventually kind of sunk in, I think was a piece there. But you kind of live in that protective net of employer employee, right? Or whether it's that or whether it's the golden handcuffs, like I'm making good money, so why I can't leave this, because I've built a life around the income that this provides. And you know to shift that to this, man, what's that cavernous space in between? You don't want to jump. What if
Right.
you don't make it? I walked away from insurance and a steady paycheck and blah blah blah, right? Meanwhile, I'm talking the talk with all these entrepreneurs for the last 14 years of my life, and then you find yourself kind of jettisoned, like, can I become one of them? Can I do that? Well, the answer is yes. But like, until you internalize and digest that to the point where you can believe it, and that's like
Yeah.
with the running thing, it's like I just kind of said, you know you practice that mindset of, oh, I can do that, sure I can do that, because when you're in your clearest space and you've forgotten to leave room for fear, um, that's when that's when I've made my biggest, boldest end games. But I would do these cool things, and I would overcome these have these accomplishments and overcome these challenges in other avenues of my life. But professionally, I would kind of stay in this little bubble of and it's funny because I've never really kind of said this stuff out loud actually, but like I realized how afraid I was of being one of the people that I was helping and
Yeah.
being the entrepreneur. And man, I'm the hugest fan of him, and even while still working there, I was doing, volunteer work with GoDaddy. GoDaddy has programs where they allow you to work with small business owners, and I that was my favorite thing. My favorite thing wasn't the 9 to 5 or approving time cards and
Yeah.
listening, checking off who did or didn't do what, or being a boss at doing that stuff, right? The part that I enjoyed the most was being around face to face with these people that they had a vision, and somehow in their mind they thought they could, and being around and being a part of proving them right. That's electric, right? But not having the same belief for yourself, what a fraud. That's kind of where I was, and applying that to something for myself. And when it comes to people and so in a professional and business corporate environment, I've seen, and GoDaddy is a good example. I was there from 600 to 6,000 people, employees, right? I was there from a stinky little call center in Scottsdale, Arizona, to a globally scaled enterprise. And they leverage. We have our own employees in other countries because of laws and staffing and all the things there. And getting into those spaces, we leverage vendors. We leverage BPO services, things like that. Partners that still had to carry the brand forward. But when I was able to when I got to the point where I was when I got to the point where I was going to be able to do this for myself and recognize the similarities between these people I was working with, the customers, that is, and then coming back and can I do this for myself? And looking at the business and seeing how it was coming along. The people that came up, GoDaddy kind of had two schools of leaders. They had the people that came in from the ground. They started on the phones, and they came to here. A good friend of mine and someone like Rich Van Meter. He's one of those people, one of the few. He came in as this young guy taking phone calls, doing sales and support. And today he's very high up and he's an executive level leadership, right? And there was a lot of stories like Rich for a long time. And then as things changed and as they went public, and this is an evolutionary thing. And people say, well, it got this, that. That's what happens. Companies go public. That's what happens. So the strategy of bringing people in was they would bring in these people that were hired for certain things, but they didn't have that intimate heart or that knowledge or that whatever it was. They were kind of showy, hired on by people. Anyway, the point is that can do, can teach. I need I always needed for my own self, if I was going to be coaching you on something, and not necessarily about the subject matter, but the framework, and basically, they say people who can't do teach, and I was always a fan of the people that could do, but also taught. When it comes to adult learning, there's the 4 stages of of professional learning and adult learning that gets you. Ultimately, you get into the is it unconscious.
Unconsciously competent,
Thank
I
you.
think. Yeah.
Yes, it is. It is. It's unconscious
Yeah.
competency. I prefer the stage right before that. For
Conscious
me,
competent.
yes. For me, that's the sweet spot because that means you kind of stay aware of your process, and in that awareness, that's knowledge you can then transfer.
Mm-hmm.
And as a leader, to me, that's the space I wanted to be in because I enjoyed seeing the light go off in the eyes of the people that I was working with. That for the first time, and yes, it was the language was about domain names and DNS and name servers, and who the hell cares? It was the I can do this too light that went off, that brought me back in the doors every day, that got me back to work, and wanting to be about that. So anyway, that
Yeah.
was a big piece. That was a big thing that Can Do Can Teach for me, and that name. And always did my best running, my best thinking when I was running, when running, and because your endorphins are going, you're breathing, you're fully oxygenated, you're standing upright, you're moving, and and being in that physical space, I would find the most mental clarity. And yeah, try and have a motivational speech from a couch, laying like this,
Right.
the pillow, and whatever. It
Ain't gonna
doesn't
happen.
work, man. It don't work. So I came up with that, and that was a piece where, like, you know what, I want to transfer what I've been given, and I didn't really bring as much to the table as I was served once I got there. And
Yeah.
I got to save that one. That was good.
That was good. Well,
So that's where the Can Do Can Teach came from. That short answer.
mhm. Dude, yeah, you said a couple powerful things there, but I think that the thing that sticks out most to me is when you were able to acknowledge that you were being a fraud
Yeah,
mentally. I mean, that's huge. That in self-awareness, the only way we're going to get better. And you're one that takes feedback, but the self-awareness is key. So
yep.
thanks for sharing that.
I
So
think the term is imposter syndrome, by the way.
yeah.
Imposter syndrome. That's kind of a phrase there. My buddy Isaac Irvine, Isaac.
Yeah.
He's the head of communications and stuff for that communications, but he's in the communications department. He has a few things that he does, but anyway, that was a thing that he did a couple of talks on. It really spoke to me. Was that imposter syndrome?
Imposter syndrome.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what it is there. But yeah, I was a fraud, and I was like, man, I can't do this. Well, guess what?
Well, I think there's a couple different philosophies you can take. There's also the idea of fake it till you make it. And I think that's where imposter syndrome happens because people say, oh, just fake it till you make it. You'll get there eventually. But depending on how you're wired, you may start to feel like an imposter. And so instead to acknowledge that, like, hey, I am in fact a student. And it's okay that I don't know the answers, but I've created this framework of discipline for myself to systematically get to the learning competency or
Right. Right.
business
Right.
outcomes I want.
Right.
That's also a path, and I think that probably resonates with you. It certainly does
Mm-hmm.
for me too. Like, I'll
Yeah,
never claim to be an
absolutely.
expert, but I know probably the lily pads I got to jump on the pond to like move myself across.
Yeah. I
And
told you,
I'll
dude,
probably pick that up from you.
when I first, but dude, when I told you, man, when I look back over my career, I love the GoDaddy mutts, as it were. And by GoDaddy mutt, I mean like a Rich Van Meter, I mean, Rich he's from Alaska. He was a fishing guide tour, like, and then he moved down here, and this is where he ended up, and similar kind of story in terms of, like, the span of influence, of impact that he's had. um, but when I think about where I've been, dude, yeah, it's then I fast forward to someone like you showing up, and I told you this too, man. I told you this too, and it's funny, these conversations. You don't want them to be like, oh, these two guys got on a call and then stroked each other for an hour. Like, you're awesome. No, you're awesome. But guess what? You're awesome. And it's because, like, I remember, like, there was the GoDaddy mutts, but then there was a handful of purebreds would come through, and and that you're one of those guys too, man. And uh, that was apparent from the get-go, and it simply was, I think, now, as we look back and hear your story as to why you got the job in the first place, that motivation, hindsight, is so apparent, as opposed to those that applied and just because they needed a job. Now, maybe once they got there, something great happened, but I knew you were there to make something great happen. Like, that's why you showed up in the first place.
Yeah.
So to me, that in and of, like, did you learn to do that? I don't know, man. But the point is that what you can teach now is what we can teach now is do something great for yourself, you know, and go into something with that mindset. And that's what I remember the most about that was, I remember the attitude, I remember the drive, and I remember the for me an abstract, but for you laser clear motivation that got you in the door at that particular place, right? And that's a huge deal. And I remember that. And now it's like when I hear that story in the back, and I've heard that before, but we're super hyper focused on it today. And man, it makes perfect sense.
Yeah. Yeah. And guys, it's fun. It just shows the power too of having someone that believes in you. And a big reason I wanted Casey on is I should have been fired, you guys. Like I literally
Me
was
too.
month over month not meeting the job work requirements. And details aside, I wasn't a good salesperson. And I thought being part of your job was you had to sell stuff. Like, yes,
Yeah.
we solved
Yep.
customer problems,
Yep.
but let's say a customer's website's down. It's like, well, hey, I realize the website's down. What is it for? Like, tell me about your business. And like, once I learned, oh, that's selling, it's literally just asking them like, why is it so important that your thing's not working? You built so much trust. And like, look, I wasn't the best salesperson, but like I was functional because I was like, oh, all I have to do is like take interest in other people and like position something that'll help them do better. And like, I can't tell you how beneficial that's been for me as a business owner. Like, look, it's you have to learn your style and find mentors that can help you get there. And I mean, whether it's Luke Burt or
Oh
Joe
gosh, yeah.
Lewison, like you guys took me under your wing. And so in the smallest way possible, the reps that I help nowadays and like learn the industry and learn what they're doing, I think about how impactful you guys were for me. And so you
Dude,
paid it
and
forward.
he's one of
So
those guys that he went off and he did his own business too. Bert Holmes.
Luke,
He he
yep.
he left the company to pursue it. I never had the nerve to do that, man. That's
Yeah.
like I never had the nerve to do that. I had to be put in a position where that choice was going to be made for me.
Well,
And that's the th-
well,
we're at time. We're at time. So I wrap it up for you. But dude, that was the thing. It's like whether you're thrust into a position or you pursued it, regardless, you're there now.
yeah,
And that's the thing. It's like I can look at the inspiration that you, Luke, the people that went off and finally they didn't have that fear, or I shouldn't say that. They didn't let that fear stop them from doing it. Okay, they went ahead and did it anyway. I never went ahead and did it anyway until I had to. So fear is a great paralyzer, and
yes,
so talk to people that are brave enough to talk about it first of all, and then have taken like I said, talk to the people that are winning. And when you figure out you just said, like, figure out what's your avenue, what's your lane. We didn't talk about the business today necessarily because that's not the point.
mm-hmm.
I'll talk to people that in my place, and you're one of them, by the way, but I will reach out to the people that know what it is that I'm trying to do, that have had success in that place, that will help me get there. And they'll tell me I can. Whatever that is, whether it's a mechanic shop, a baker, whatever it is, uh, get around the people that are winning and ask them for help, because that's the good nature, the natural, inherent good nature of people, is they do want to help.
Yes.
And if we all come to the table with that, and prior to this session here, we talked about what's going on in the world today, and that's what we need. We need to be helping each other. And if we
Mm-hmm.
can do it in life as neighbors, but also as in business, we know it's going to line up. It always
Yeah,
does.
it always does. Well, on that note, let's definitely give it a minute, but just specifically, guys. So Casey started a business to wrap up today called Can Do, Can Teach, and he's really focused on going into organizations that have scaling, either customer support needs or sales needs, but it's scaling so fast that yes, we have technology, we can plug people into software all day, but the folks that are getting hired on, newbies to the business, need training. They need people that can help them navigate whatever this job is. The executives, as much as they may want to help these teams, don't know how. And so that's what Casey's really trying to do with Can Do, Can Teach. I can promise you he's prolific at it. I've seen him. He helped me personally. So, I mean, do you have anything you want to piggyback onto that with respect to Can Do, Can Teach, and just where you're at with the business?
You know, I think the coolest thing about going through this was I'm doing for my own business what I would do for somebody else, because the process to accomplish that is the same, right? Because you're never gonna, like, being humble enough to ask for help, because, like, I'm starting a business on starting businesses. A
Yeah.
part of that process is asking for advice and help and feedback on how do you start your business, right? The knowledge and the skill and the expertise that my business focuses on, the to your point, the company that is growing so fast, they don't have the infrastructure in place yet, so they can bring on a partner like myself to fulfill those needs, to either to provide the services in companies that don't have a training department yet. Well, I I provide that training material. I come in there and I interview you and I figure all that stuff out, and I can get you the training. We do the interim services, so I can help, like we talked about before, like the details aside, but like there's the deliverables that go with a job that make it be, because you have to measure something to know whether or not it's worth doing, right? So that's going to be the KPIs, key performance indicators. Like I help you figure out what those things are, and then the executable actions that deliver them, and focusing really on, like, the environment, the call center or care center, whatever you want to call it. That's the stuff that's where the rubber is meeting the road for me, is making that stuff
Front
happen.
lines.
Yeah,
Yeah.
man, I love it.
Yeah.
I love it because it's, anyway, so that's the piece. So partnering with those companies to do that thing, just check it, go to the website, canteach.com. And, as I've been doing this for a long time, I'm doing it under this name now officially. And, man, I'm so excited to be having conversations like this, because the time when I didn't even believe that, when I was, that imposter syndrome, that fraudism, right? That emotional fraud that was paralyzing, and that's no place to live. That's no way to live, professionally, personally, or otherwise. And what a cool treat it is to be able to know that I don't have to do that, and that I can do this instead, and I can transfer that knowledge, hence the name.
Well, no doubt in my mind, dude, you're going to have a ton of fun with it, first of all. And
Yep.
you're going to help a lot of people. And so just want to say I'm super proud of you. Thanks for
Thank you,
everything you've
man.
done for me. And
Likewise.
thanks for hopping on today. So guys, go to candocanteach.com.
Mm-hmm.
Casey's domain. Casey O'Connor on LinkedIn. He's relatively active on LinkedIn. And then, if you want an introduction to Casey, send me a message. I'd be happy to broker a conversation. Another just specialization. I know Casey didn't talk about it, but he's exceptional at understanding Microsoft as well, the entire Office 365 suite. So if that happens to be technology your organization's using already, why not get more out of it? Casey can also help you kind of analyze that and work with that too. So
Yep. The tools too, right? Tools of the trade.
A big piece of it. Cool. Well, dude, thank you for coming on today. It's been fun.
Awesome.
All right. And everybody, till next time, Outcome Studio out. Thanks, Casey.